We're on. All right. Hi, guys. Welcome. This is by far the best part of your challenge, I would say. I'm a little bit biased. So I'm Ange, for those of you guys that don't know me, and this is Ali. So Ali is my sidekick for today. She's actually an amazing colleague and an amazing friend. She's an advanced sports dietitian and has done a stacked ton of work in many different fields and many industries as well, and also had the opportunity to go to the Paralympics as well, which was pretty cool. So she comes with a wealth of knowledge. So you're not only just getting me this time, because I know sometimes you guys get sick of me talking, Ali's going to throw some nutrition knowledge bombs at you today. So the purpose of today is to not only get fed, that is a really good thing, we would like to show you how you can actually eat well, think about things like recovery, putting some good fuel in to support your training and your exercise, and to actually know that you can do this yourself really easily at home, and you can go away knowing that you are actually eating with purpose. I think the biggest thing that that we can try and do as dietitians is to transcend our knowledge. It's one thing to know about nutrition. Nutrition's a really good science, but it's another thing as to how do we execute that and what does that translate to in terms of eating. Okay, so hopefully we'll get some really good knowledge bombs as we go through today as well. Please feel free and comfortable to ask questions. We've got some wonderful recipes here, but it's about you guys. So whatever you guys need to know, make sure you ask us within the course of the morning as well. So let's get started, hey? Firstly, has everyone had a smoothie? Recovery smoothie. Okay, so there's two different recipes that we went with. There was a chocolate milk and an iced coffee. We can put these recipes up, guys, so don't feel like you're not going to get them. Please, if you are doing some Instagram or that sort of stuff at the moment, if you can tag iperformance_nutrition and hashtag fueled by IPN. We'd love to see your recipes and how you create them as well. So let's kick it off. We're going to start with breakfast. Because you've had your post-training smoothie, we're going to now move into something that's a little bit more wholesome. And I thought this morning, because it's been so chilly and cold, we might do a bit of a warm dish. So to start with, we're going to firstly go through a couple of different things. So I'm going to start over here in my breakfast bar. What we're looking at here, guys, and if you haven't had a chance to sort of come and have a look, we might just pass this around. So I'll start with you, Holly, if you can, or maybe not. Thanks, Danielle. So I've got a couple of grains and seeds there, and this is how we start in terms of making our own muesli, because there's one thing to buy muesli, but it's also another thing to be able to know how to choose the right types of things. So what do I look for when I'm talking about a muesli is something that starts with a whole grain. So we love whole grains. Why do we love whole grains? Or don't we love whole grains? We do, yes. Some people don't, yeah. So for you guys, particularly when we're doing things post-training, we're looking to refuel. So to put back those carbohydrates that you've burnt within the session that you've just done, we're trying to go in and find some sort of carbohydrate that is what we term low GI or complex carbohydrate. It's basically stuff that has a bit of fibre around it that makes it hard for your body to digest. So when we're looking at those sorts of things, we really want to be getting something that's quite nutritious. The more casing that you have around a grain, the better. Okay, the more processed it is, the least it will be in terms of the casing that you'll get. So it'll be easier to digest. All right, we want to make your body work hard. So to start with, I'm going to do a really cool, what I call a lupin granola. And this is the final product over here, and I'll talk about lupin in a second. So to start with, I've got my grains. So if you can see there, what do I have on my plate? What do I got? Does anyone know what those grains are? Oats. Yep, I've got rolled oats. Now, I haven't got instant oats, okay, because once again, that's a processed grain. So I've got something that looks pretty whole. And to be honest, it was probably 99 cents for a kilo. I got a home brand one. Okay, just as good, sometimes even better, when you're looking at things that might not have, say, a nice label on it that tells you it's healthy. Don't get fooled by emotive marketing. A lot of people will end up buying a product simply because it looks healthy or it has a nice little, maybe a raw packaging, and it's deemed to be perceived as a little bit better for us. So don't be fooled about those sorts of things. Basically, when I look for a packaged product, I look for 4 or less ingredients. So if you pick something up off the shelf and you were going to read the label, it should have 4 ingredients or less. Now muesli, because I've got it here, is probably the only one that can have a little bit more than 4 ingredients, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But really, we want an unprocessed food. So something that has least amount of ingredients will be pretty unprocessed. So rolled oats, if you see a label and it says whole grain rolled oats, that's what you want. So if you had a look at that, you can actually see the whole grain itself, okay? So we've got those in there. What other grain did I have on my plate? You guys remember? Well, yeah, puffed brown rice. So you can find this really cheaply and really easily in the health food section of your supermarkets, and obviously in health food shops as well. But they might sell them in like bulk source foods and stuff like that as well. So I've got 2 grains there, and I went with a brown rice grain because once again with the brown rice it hasn't been polished, so basically it's a little bit more unprocessed, so we like to say. So I've got a cup of brown rice puffs and I've got a cup of oats, rolled oats. And then I've got a half a cup thereabouts of, what are these green things? I've got sunflower seeds in there. The green ones are the pepitas or the pumpkin seeds, and the white ones are the sunflower seeds. So when's the last time you had a seed? Did you try one as it went around? Yesterday. Good. Because seeds are something, most people when you say, hey, do you get, a bit of good fats in your diet? And they'll go, oh yeah, I might grab some almonds. Because we all know that almonds are probably healthier than every other nut, don't we? Is that true or false? Who would believe that? Every time I speak to people about eating nuts, they go, yeah, I eat almonds. So I was like, great, well, what about all the other nuts that you've got? What about all the other choices that you've got? So when we choose variety within a food group, we get so much more access to extra vitamins and minerals. So the more variety that you can have, the better for your diet and your nutrition in general. And then that's when our seeds come in. So often we eat a lot of nuts. They're a really handy thing to take around with us. Seeds sometimes are a little bit small. They get stuck in your bloody handbag. Anyone had at the bottom of your handbag? Or is that just me getting seeds? So I like to put them into my muesli and into my cooking. So that's why I've chosen them. Pepitas in particular are really high in zinc. I love that, okay? And you're looking at your sunflower seeds being high in calcium as well. So is it the best source of calcium? Maybe not, but it's still a source. Is pepitas the best source of zinc when I compare it to meat? Maybe not, but if you don't want to have meat, then you've got to think about where else are you getting these other micronutrients from. So this is just one thing that we can do to increase our availability to having these in other sources of foods. Okay, so that's what we've got, nice and simply. So what I'm going to do now is to crisp it up a little bit because that's the biggest thing that we want. So I'm going to make a bit of a mix. And so for a lot of mueslis, you'll find that they add a lot of extra sugar that might be a little bit more processed. And so I decided that I'd talk you guys through a couple of different sweeteners. Okay, so there's a couple of different things that I get asked a lot of within clinic, and one is what's better for me, brown rice malt syrup, or honey, or maple syrup, or coconut sugar. Anyone else had anything else that they've used as a sugar substitute maybe in cooking? Stevia, yep, absolutely. Palm sugar, yes, exactly. And coconut sugar, yep. Yeah, absolutely. So guys, and the thing is we go, okay, well we want to be eating healthy, we want to be eating maximally for what we want. So the biggest thing to remember is that at the end of the day, sugar is sugar. Doesn't matter where it comes from, it's still going to give you, in its simplest form, glucose. It's just how quickly that gets into your system is obviously, because it's more refined and processed, it'll go in a little bit quicker than say sugar or glucose from a piece of fruit. Okay, or from a grain for that matter. So those 2 other foods your body needs to do a whole other stack of digestive processes in order to get that glucose. Whereas these guys, they're pretty much going to enter straight away. So when I look at what's the difference, okay, so basically you've got, and I laugh at this because everyone goes, oh, this is an unrefined source of sugar. It's from brown rice. It's totally refined. They've had to squeeze the rice so hard to get it into this jar. Okay, so that is actually processed, so don't be fooled by that sort of suggestion. The other thing is, have you guys tasted this? No? Yes, some of you? Oh, you guys might want to try it actually. I'll open it up so you guys can try. We'll be giving you guys some spoons here as well. So it's actually not that sweet. It's actually really mild. So for a lot of people, when they're looking at a substitute for sugar within their baking, they go, oh yeah, I'll put brown rice malt syrup, and they find out, oh, it's actually not that sweet. So they put a bit more in. Okay, and then all of a sudden you're getting this whole notion of, oh, hang on a minute, I'm actually just increasing the amount of sugar I'm eating, even though it's from an unrefined, unprocessed source. which we know now not to be true, these are the sort of misconceptions that we want to make you guys aware of. So, it's gluten-free, totally fine. Awesome, must be healthy for you. Okay, so then I've got my next kit on the block, which is organic pure honey. So, I mean, there was a big Netflix documentary, I don't know if you guys saw any of that, but in terms of what they're doing with honey is that they're putting a lot of sugar into it, and so you're getting a product that says it's honey, but it's actually just kind of sugar with a little bit of honey in it. Within our market, that's obviously America, so it's a little bit different. We do follow suit, but I have to say that I always will look for something that is a raw honey, or maybe even just something that you can get from a farmer's market, because then at least you know it's coming from a good source. This is unprocessed. It's literally taken from the honeycomb. Okay, so that's, if you're looking for a natural product, that's very natural. It's really sweet too. Okay, so that's the other thing. So that's the next one I sort of go, okay, well, if that's sweeter than this, I probably need less of it. By default, I'm eating less sugar. It is from a natural source, okay? At the end of the day, that possibly might be another better option. And then, of course, we have maple syrup, and maple syrup is probably one of my favourites because of the flavour of it. So it's not only sweet, but it's also got that really sort of bitter, burnt, musky sort of flavour behind it. And it's literally taken from the maple tree if you're looking at maple, 100% pure maple syrup, not the other version. What's the other version? Maple flavoured syrup. What's the other one?
Golden syrup.
Golden syrup. Okay. So when you're making your Anzac bickies, even though I know it says golden syrup, this would probably be my better option. Okay. So once again, like I said, I choose things in terms of sweetness for different reasons, but from a flavour, from a taste, and from an amount in total, we want to be going with something that obviously we are eating less added sugars. Does that make sense to everyone? Good. And when you're making your own muesli, you've got the opportunity to actually add that sugar in yourself, so you can control how much or how little you want to put in there. So the other thing I've gone with is natural juice. Okay, so when we're looking at juice, obviously the whole fruit is best, but if I'm trying to sweeten something up, I'll just grab an orange, or you can grab a grapefruit, or a lemon if you wanted to, or a mandarin, which is what I've used in the muesli, so orange or mandarin, something citrus, and I've literally just squeezed it, but I've put the pulp back in there. So a little bit extra fibre in there too. So now that I've got that, I want to add a little bit of sweetener, and my choice is now the maple syrup. I'm putting roughly about 1/4 cup. I'm highlighting now a little bit other undertone in terms of my vanilla, so I'm putting a little bit more vanilla in there. I'm also putting the zest of that orange to get a bit more flavour in it. So now I've got this syrup that is pretty reasonably unprocessed in my mind, but I'm controlling exactly how much I'm putting into other things as well. So that'll sweeten it up. The other thing now, we want to make it a little bit crispy, because that's nice, isn't it? That sort of nice crispy texture. And often a lot of mueslis will put in, or a lot of recipes will suggest, what would a recipe suggest if you've ever made muesli before to crisp it up? Oil. Yep. What sort of oil in particular?
Coconut or olive.
Yep. So I'm going with olive oil for a very, very big reason. So I'm going to put that in, and I'll talk as well, so that you guys might be hungry. So I'm probably putting maybe about a tablespoon or two, depending on how much muesli you want to make. I always make a massive batch of this when I'm making it. If I'm going to take time to make something, I'm going to make twice as much, so I don't have to make it the next week, okay? So think about that from a food prep perspective. If you can, do this sort of stuff in bulk, because it keeps really, really well. So think about that sort of thing in the first place. So all I'm going to do there is I've popped 1 to 2 tablespoons of the olive oil in there. You can see that, and I'm just dumping it in. Okay, so I'm mixing it all in with my other grains, and then all you need to do from here onwards is whack that oven on. Obviously I don't have one here, but I have prepared something earlier. And you're going to place it on a baking tray and probably bake it for about 10-15 minutes. Check it though. Every couple of minutes go and check it, because you need to make sure you get those extra burnt bits on the end, the nice crispy ones. Mix it back in, and then make sure that you can evenly toast the rest of it as well. That's really easy. Really, really simple in terms of muesli. If you didn't have time, I like these guys in terms of a product to choose when I'm going into the supermarket. May I tell you guys, I'm not paid or endorsed by any company. This is just me looking for good stuff for you guys. Where I look for, like I said about the ingredients, 4 ingredients or less, or with a muesli, it can be a little bit more, because there's obviously going to be a lot of maybe grains, a lot of seeds, and possibly some dried fruit in there. Okay, so sometimes I look at these and go, well, this one's pretty much okay. And the reason why, and I don't even look at labels anymore. I just go, you know what, bypass. I'm like, what the hell is in there? I want to know what the ingredients say to me. So if I can recognise and read every single ingredient and know that I can probably purchase each one of those ingredients singly, then I would absolutely say it's a good unprocessed food. So I've got oat flakes, wheat flakes, barley flakes, raisins, sultanas, toasted wheat flakes, sunflower seeds, dates, Brazil nuts, and whole roasted hazelnuts. That's it. Pretty banging product. Okay, some people get really scared about the sugar content with muesli. If it's from dried fruit, you've got a bit of a higher buffer. So when we're looking at sugar, if you've got a dried fruit product, if you wanted to look at the label, the per 100 gram column, it can be under 30 grams for the sugar, just the sugar content. Okay, so that is a really good winner if you're out and about and you're time poor and you can't make this sort of stuff. Cool? The other thing I have added now to this, and I wanted to add, is lupin. Lupin flakes. Anyone tried lupin flakes before? No. Okay, so this is basically, if we think about it, halfway between a lentil and a chickpea. It's a legume. They've dried it and they put it into a flake. I'm dumping the whole lot in, so there's a cup in there as well. Now, it is 40% protein. Guys, I will be, over the course of the day, thinking about a couple of questions because I want to give away some free things. So if you listen really closely and I ask you a question, you can answer it at the end, you'll get some free products. Lupin contains 40% protein. Does everyone understand that? Which means for 50 grams of it, I get 20 grams of protein. Remember I talked about the 20 gram protein rule? Yeah, for females and maybe upwards of 40 for males when we're talking about protein and recovery and also trying to achieve that number of protein or amount of protein in every one of our meals. So it is probably one of the most highest vegan, vegetarian, bean-based, plant-based sources of protein that I can get that is lower in carbohydrate. Okay? It's really versatile too. It actually tastes really, really good. It can mix through everything. So I've put it in a muesli. And I've toasted it. All right, so we're going to get a taste and a flavour feel for that. So that's my muesli. Anyone have any questions about muesli at this stage?
No, you can say how hot is the oven when you're baking?
180, just normal.
Okay.
Yep, normal temp. Cool.
Regarding the honey,
Yes.
the only one really in Australia that you should steer clear of, Lowry, they cut their honey.
Okay.
And yeah, Woolworths,
Thank
there's
you.
this big, huge
Good
thing
tips here,
going,
guys.
Woolworths won't take it off the shelves because it's cheap. But a
That's
Lowry
what-
brand comes from Capilano and it's really cheap and it's been cut with Chinese and sugar syrups.
Inside word. There you go. And this is a stuff, you know. So you've got to be aware of that. But if you looked on the label, do they have to say that it's got sugar in it? Sneaky, right? That's really cool. Thank you for that
Yeah, no,
because.
it's cheap. It's half the price of the other honey.
So there you go.
Yeah, it's the Lowry brand. They've got a teddy bear on it.
Yep. Okay. There you go. So if you spend a little bit of money, like I said, sometimes the best things don't have labels. Go to your farmer's market, maybe pick up some actual local raw honey from a farm somewhere. Cool. Thank you for that.
You're talking about the oil.
Thank you. Cool. Okay, I might just get this on the pan first before I talk about olive oil. Thank you, Ali. Okay, so we've done this. Now, with building complete meals, we also want to have a fruit or vegetable component. So I've got this over here. Now, the thing that I'm going to add right at the end is my berries or my dried fruit. So don't do that before you toast it. That's something that you might want to add in the end. I've put cranberries and goji berries in this one. I don't particularly like goji berries on their own. I like them within stuff. And to be fair, I mean, they're a superfood, but they're not the be-all, end-all. You can simply just put sultanas or berries or anything, apricots for that matter, just making sure you're getting the organic one if you don't like the sulfate in them as well. So you could put any dried fruit. So I'd probably put a cup of dried fruit in the total mix after you've toasted it. So the other thing I'm going to now go on to is having it with some more fresh fruit. And I thought timely because rhubarb is out and about. And so this is what rhubarb looks like. It probably comes in a bigger stalk. I've just cut it. Has anyone cooked with it before? Yes, a couple of you. Yeah, so sometimes people, it's a bit of a fear food because if we're unused to or we don't know what to do with it, we won't usually try it. But it's one of the most nutritious sources of foods that you can get from a fruit perspective. And it's delicious, but you have to prepare it well. You have to cook it. Otherwise, it's really chewy and stringy. And poisonous. That too. So all I'm going to do now is hopefully not burn the place down. Get this on the pan. So I'm going to put in a little bit of olive oil so it just doesn't burn the pan, so a little bit of drizzle there. Guys, every time you cook with olive oil and you cook foods with olive oil, it's a really good thing because you can actually help absorb nutrition better. So sometimes the components of the woody fibrous vegetable or fruit that you're trying to cook contains lots of nutrients that need to be unlocked before your body can absorb them, and cooking in olive oil is one method of how you can do that. So don't be afraid to cook with olive oil. A lot of people think it's not a very good oil to cook with and we want to have it cold all the time, but that's actually a myth. Do we know why that's a myth? Or do you still believe it? So olive oil, so generally people say don't cook with it, don't heat it because it becomes not a good fat after you heat it. Do we know what the heating smoke point of olive oil is? Up, higher. How much? Yep. Just over 200. So you can actually, what would you normally do a 200 oven with? Roasting veggies, you know? I'm just literally chopping up some dates here, guys, because once again, I'm trying to look for that added sweetness that might not be in maybe a processed form. So I've literally put a couple of dates in there with my rhubarb. They are, oh no, sorry, these ones weren't, but you can use fresh dates. Just pip them, yeah, yep.
You don't think the extra virgin olive oil is too strong for a sweet dish?
Don't care. Health benefits trip my taste buds all the time. No, well, you're right, it could be, yeah, but if we're making it in something a little bit bigger, then that's probably a little bit more okay. I've got a knob of ginger here, and most people, I know, I'm just trying to turn this down a little bit before I break everything. So I'm going to add a bit of ginger. I will get back to the olive oil story in a second. So all I'm doing here is grating a little bit and popping it in. Does anyone cringe when I do this? No? Good. Why is ginger good? Do we know? Yeah. Antiviral. I mean, there's garlic's antiviral a little bit more. Any other reason? Good for colds, winter. Yeah. And it's delicious. You know, sometimes these things, it's interesting because, like, we often sort of think about things that we hear about in nutrition and in cooking, and we go, well, where did we hear that from? A lot of these things are traditional that people have been doing in cultures for many, many years, and we sort of turn around and go, oh yeah, we know ginger's good for us when we get sick. Well, why do we only eat it when we're sick? Or why do we only sauce it when we're sick? We should be eating this sort of stuff daily in our diet, all the time, things like ginger and garlic and chili and fresh herbs and spices and things like that, because they have medicinal properties when we're thinking about food as medicine. Okay, so we eat well, we might not necessarily need medicine, down the track. So it has its place, but I think we need to start thinking about how we can incorporate these sorts of things at any time of the year, not just in winter. So I've put the dates in there, there's some rhubarb in there and some ginger. And the other thing I'm going to do is my biggest vitamin C fan ever. And we love vitamin C because when we're sick, we want to make sure that we're getting more of it. Because you know what happens when we get sick? We stop eating well. And we go, oh, we'll take a tablet. So there was, you might be able to quote me on this, Ali, but there was a study that was done looking at the vitamin C content of an apple. And they extracted the amount of vitamin C that you would get from an apple and put it into a tablet, vitamin C tablet. And they took two groups of people, they took the same group of people and basically said, here you go, take the tablet or just eat the whole green apple. And what they discovered was that the effect of the vitamin C when you ate the apple was 263 times more effective than having the vitamin C in the same amount as part of a tablet. So there is something about whole foods that is pretty spectacular. The way in which a food is comprised, a whole food that's pretty much untouched, will give you so much more nutritional bang for your buck than you can ever find in any sort of vitamin or pill, or supplement for that matter. So really, really hones into the fact that food comes first. There are multiple ways in which we can get vitamin C. Berries are a fantastic source. And so when I'm looking for vitamin C containing foods, I'd rather go with a whole food first rather than just take vitamin C. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. That's all I did. I put a little bit of water in there to make sure that it wasn't burning on from the top. I might put a little bit more. Now, you could put juice in there if you wanted to, but it's sweet enough already, and I quite like the tartness of it. So that's essentially what I've done. I'm going to whack a lid on it and just let it simmer for a little bit. But seeing as you guys are hungry, I've prepared something earlier. So basically, Ali's going to start maybe dishing this sort of stuff up while I talk about olive oil, and then I might go on to talking about these guys and these products. So basically what we've got is your fruit compote, so that's what I want in my as my base. The other thing I've done is just added chia seeds to gel it up a little bit. So instead of it being quite fluidy, I wanted to put those chia seeds in there to thicken it up, but also because chia seeds are a great source of plant-based omega-3s. And why omega-3 is good? For your brain, yes, absolutely, absolutely. What about from an athletic standpoint? Your joints? Yeah, yep. Yeah. So anti-inflammatory, when we're looking at these sorts of fats and their effect on calming our muscles down after we've aggravated them up when we're exercising, these are the sorts of things that you might be able to look for to add into your diet as little, like we talk about in terms of the sprinkles on top of your basic nutrition day to day. And I'm adding this into my fruit, and it almost sets it like a jam. So if you think about jam and what I've created here, texturally is probably the same, but nutritionally completely different. Okay, so think about those sorts of things. Now, we're going to pair it up a little bit because, of course, we want a complete breakfast. So what am I missing? So I've got my fruit, right? I've got my muesli and my grains, my carbohydrate. I'm missing protein. Okay, so then we've got a couple of amazing products on the market at the moment that can provide us with not only dairy and calcium, protein, yes, but also electrolytes and a little bit of extra carbohydrate. So I'm going to pair this up with my dairy, and then we're going to sprinkle our muesli on top. And then you guys can start eating. So I reckon we just go luck of the draw and we just start dishing. So this is, okay, yeah, do that. Use that one first, and then we'll go into Chobani and this one. Okay, so Ali is shaking up a really, really cool product. Has anyone tried this before?
Seen it, but I haven't tried it.
Seen it? Haven't you? Going to try it today, right? Taryn's going to get that one. So we're just going to pour some of it on top of your fruit, and then of course we can actually, you guys can maybe come up, grab a cup, and then pop your muesli on top of it as well.
Just with the chia seeds, you add that after it's cooled, or you add it while it's cooking?
You can do both. Yeah, I added both. It doesn't matter. So as long as it does absorb a fair amount of liquid, so you could do it. It just needs about 2 to 3 minutes to actually just absorb. So it doesn't matter really. Yeah. I might just switch that off. So that probably, it probably takes about 10 minutes if you're going to do something like that, depending on how much you're doing. But once again, can store really well. So if you do it a big batch, maybe just keep it in some jars and keep it in the fridge. So this is a really, really cool product. So it's a probiotic milk, basically halfway between a milk and a yogurt. So it's kind of like a liquidy yogurt. But the benefit of it is that it's a little bit higher in protein. Sorry, I'm going to take that back. It's pretty similar to milk. The yogurts are higher in protein. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's got your added probiotics, and it's got a really sort of tart flavour. So basically these guys have put 15 live cultures and probiotics into their actual milk and let it sit, and it's just delicious. Like, it is something that's very unique in terms of flavour and taste. So if you are keen to try it, make sure you come up and grab. Actually, guys, come up if you like. I can still sort of start talking, but Ali's going to dish it up. I'll get you to come up, grab a breakfast pot, and make sure you pop your muesli on top of there, and then you can grab a spoon as well. Yeah, so, you know what, probiotics are amazing. Like, why do we need probiotics?
I haven't tried that before as well.
For your gut, yeah. We now know, in terms of our gut microbiome, that that's pretty bloody important in relation to our immunity, our health, and just also our general mental well-being and our mental state. So this is the sort of stuff that is so interesting, because when I think about food and mood, it's a very important component that we are getting some good probiotics within our meals, within our diet, for our gut to be healthy and for our brain to work. Because as much as we can tell you guys what to do, it's really about how you feel, okay? So you need to be making decisions based on how you feel mentally, not only just physically as well. So probiotics, they put the good gut bacteria in. I like to think about your gut as a bit of a party house. Lots of things make a good party, good food, and also great guests. And so the guests, I believe, are your probiotics. They're the fancy people that you want to invite to make it really awesome. And then, of course, we want to provide your party with really good food. So you also need prebiotics as well as probiotics. So it's not just one thing to have probiotics in there, which is what you get out of something like this, a product like this, or taking, say, a probiotic supplement, or maybe sipping on something like kombucha. Where else do we get probiotics? You know, yogurt's obviously a typical, kimchi, a lot of your fermented veggies, you can get a lot of probiotics from there. Or like I said, as a supplement. But it's one thing for them to sit there, they also need to eat off and feed off something. And so our prebiotic foods are very important to be having with that. So rhubarb is a particularly good prebiotic food. The more fibrous food you have, the better your prebiotics. So very interesting and important to make sure that you get that within your diet, okay? If you keep your cups, guys, you can always come back for seconds. I just don't have any containers, so keep it and come back around.
Portion size?
Portions. Yeah, I mean, these are obviously just taste sample serving sizes. But you guys tell me, what are your portions? You know, your portions are directly proportionate to your hands, right? So your needs are going to reflect exactly what food group that we discussed in the manual of your challenge guide. So protein wants to be that palm serve size or amount. So, you know, at least sort of looking at a cup to maybe 3/4 of a cup, depending on how big you are, in terms of your yogurt or your protein content. Your veggies or fruit want to be that fist serve. So if you stewed that fruit down, obviously it collapses down a little bit, so 1/2 a cup is good. And then, of course, your fats, which we've added in our chia seeds, and, of course, we've got seeds and nuts in there as well in terms of your muesli. Want to be that thumb size amount. So you can see that when I did the muesli, it was a lot less nuts and seeds compared to the grains. So we had that carbohydrate main factor. And then we also had a little bit of extra protein in the lupin flakes that we put in the cereal. You can get them from the shop. You can also get them from, like in terms of their online shop, but you can get them from Charlie's and health food places as well. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know, I really want to sell them here. They're freaking awesome. So good, so good. As a protein content, a plant-based protein source. Really, really good. Yeah, so, you know, guys, like I said, this is a perfect breakfast. It's a perfect winter breakfast. It's got everything in terms of ticking off all your box needs. And the other thing to remember with this sort of stuff is with your... now your yogurts are coming out that have a bit of a strained effect. So what they're doing is they're straining the yogurt, which then by default increases the protein content of it. So you can get a lot more protein in the one serve than what you would normally out of a normal yogurt. So generally I'd always recommend a natural product because we want to be limiting that sugar that goes in. But say for instance something like Rokeby Farms, you know, their sugar content isn't all that high even with their flavoured yogurts, and that might be really good post-training if you want a different flavour mix as well, or if you didn't have it with any other fruit.
And is there a difference between like the Chobani and the YoPro, or are they all just pretty...
They're reasonably the same, maybe 1 or 2 grams of protein per serve. Yeah, so this 170 grams is generally what the serving amount is, and it'll give you between 15 to 17 grams of protein. The 200 gram ones will give you 20 grams. So the guys, you know, obviously bigger content, bigger needs, you might want to go for something that's a little bit higher from that perspective as well. So that's why we love, you know, like I said, look for stuff like Chobani's one brand, YoPro's another brand. Look for a strained yogurt. What I like, the difference between, I guess, a Rokeby Farms and a Chobani or a strained or a high protein yogurt is this has a ridiculously higher calcium content. So if you have extra calcium needs, or if you tend to find that you're not having a lot of dairy through the day anyway, and for kids in smoothies, wonderful source of dairy. And we actually emailed them about this because we're like, are you really sure that this is right? So to give you a comparison, their calcium per 100 grams is 260 milligrams. And this one per 100 grams is 120. So it's over double. Yeah.
So for a vegan version, would you just add soy milk or something? Like, how would you get your protein?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep. Well, you've got your lupin flakes, remember, as well. So I just maybe stick it extra. Actually, and you know, lupin flakes you can cook like with oats as well, so you can warm it up. You can cook it up from that perspective as well. Yeah, but I reckon you'd probably hit your protein. You'd be pretty close to hitting protein if you had it with soy milk, as well as the muesli, the high protein muesli, and then put some chia seeds in your compote. Yeah, pleasure.
Angie, why can't I use coconut oil
to make it taste good.
Woohoo! All right, so we're going back to our olive oil. Okay, so couple of reasons. You can Cobram Estate is just a wonderful product. There's so much information on that website if you want to go and have a look at some of the things I will be telling you, because I'm trying to now remember from the website. So basically what we look at is, number one, olive oil trips any oil on antioxidant content. So if you have a look at it, it's got that real green tinge to it, and that highlights then that it's got a few extra nutrients or other beneficial factors compared to another oil, another unrefined oil or a processed oil of some description. And whilst this is still obviously processed, what happens with Cobram Estate is that they pick the olive and they press it within 6 hours. So that's what you're getting out of a first cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. And that makes a big difference. So when you're looking at things that you're choosing, or you know how to choose a better product from an oil perspective, I wouldn't look any further than a first cold press extra virgin olive oil. And in Australia, we are so fortunate to have amazing farms and amazing produce. So then, of course, I like to keep it on home turf as well, which is why Rokeby Farms is a really good brand as well, because they're in Gippsland. So I love knowing that what I'm eating is coming from somewhere that's pretty locally sourced in terms of where in our country we're actually producing these sorts of amazing things. So this is basically king when it comes to anti-inflammation, when we're looking at things that calm our muscles down once again. And also from a smoke point, remember that a lot of the times we got put off using olive oil in cooking because we thought that it would denature the actual fat itself, make it more rancid, and then not have great properties nutritionally. But what we then tend to find is because it's so high in its antioxidant content, it actually makes it a really stable oil to cook with. So it's not necessarily the smoke point that's going to give you an idea about how healthy an oil is. It's actually how much antioxidants it contains in terms of making it very stable for then when you cook it or add heat to it, it actually doesn't matter in terms of changing that compound, so it doesn't make it any unhealthier for you when you're heating it. And needless to say, like I said, I think most people went towards the coconut oil simply because it had a higher smoke point, when in reality that wasn't the case. This is actually, you know, as I said, upwards of 200 degrees. So basically most deep fries are about 190 degrees. So if you want to deep fry with it, go for your life. Okay, so it's obviously a little bit more expensive, but is it more expensive than coconut oil? Probably not. Coconut oil has no other nutritional value other than it being 100% fat. So whilst we're looking at something that contains the same amount of energy per gram, coconut oil versus olive oil, you get so much more nutrition from an olive oil itself. And like I said to you about what we're trying to do and achieve within cooking is that we're releasing some of those beautiful nutrients that we might not otherwise have absorbed if we were to eat it raw. So cooking with the olive oil is a really, really big thing. And the other thing I want to mention is that it has this unique property called oleocanthal. And that is, and I've said this before for some of you guys that have already been to my cooking demos, it works on the same pathway as ibuprofen. So you could have a natural painkiller just by taking this and adding this into your diet. And we looked at having it as part of, say, a Mediterranean type style of diet. It's something that is used liberally across and within cooking as well. So please don't be shy of using it. Use it in your salad dressings, use it in your cooking, drizzle it on other things, but definitely get it into your diet and you'll never ever look back. And that's the only thing I ever use now from here moving forward.
Because the one's flavoured with like garlic, because you can get the Cobram garlic.
Yeah.
That's just as
Totally fine, totally
yeah.
fine. And actually for people that have FODMAP issues, so malabsorption of certain sugars, they can't eat a lot of garlic and onion, those flavoured oils are a really good option for them to still get that taste and that flavour in there, as opposed to eating the actual garlic bulb itself or the onion itself. So really good, really good something, there's maybe something different that you want to have in your cupboard as well. Cool, how did we like the breakfast? Good? There's so much more, guys, so please feel free and comfortable to come up and grab some more as we go along. Some of the staff members need to get fed. Cool. Okay, let's move on. How are we going for time?
Yeah,
sorry,
quarter
press
past
the
9.
oil question.
That's awesome. That's good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go on to is basically making a bit of a meal. So we're going to make a Mexican dish. Do you mind maybe putting that, see if it's warm, and putting it in there, the beans? Yeah. And then we can put that in the microwave, that in the microwave too. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to do a bit of a Mexican smorgasbord. So what I want you guys to remember is that plate and how we build that plate with our protein, carbs, veggies, salads, and fats. And so I've got a selection of different things that I would like you guys to come and build your plate with. So for starters, I'm going to do what I call a bean dish. So it's going to be vegetarian or vegan, but it's important for you guys to, like I said, think outside the box when it comes to these sorts of things. Not often do we get to eat beans or prepare beans, so I thought I might do it for you guys and show you just how easy it is. So this is what I got, literally black beans. I picked these up at Aldi, out of all places. You can find them at most of your other shops, just in your soup section. And so if you wanted to get them dry, all I'd do is put them in a big bowl, pop some boiling water on top of it and leave it for a few hours. Otherwise, we can just get tin ones. Totally fine. I'd just rinse the rinse the beans out. And you want to chuck all of those in together. Yep, and then put them in the microwave. Thank you. So what we've got is a Mexican nachos, and I thought I might go with something like this so you guys can basically, like I said, build your own meals. And so I've just soaked that, so they're ready now to be added into what I'm trying to cook. So to start with, we want to make sure we get some olive oil in the pan. And now we're going to add a little bit of flavour. So I want you guys to smell the aroma of what I'm trying to create. So I'm heating this up now. And the other thing I wanted to do and put nice and simply, you know how I said there's a 2 and 5 rule last time? So every day we want to be trying to get 2 serves of fruit and 5 serves of veggies or salad in a day. So often we don't really know what that actually looks like. So I've got 6 cups here. This is a bit light, so I'm just going to put all that there. If you guys can think about what you ate yesterday, do you think you'd be able to fill up those 6 cups in the way of veggies or salad? Good. So visually, I want you to start seeing what you need to be getting in a day, because for a lot of people, that's a lot of a lot of salad or veg to think about trying to get into their day. So I'm obviously putting all this into a dish, but I want you to start to remember that you need to eat all of this collectively every single day. Start getting that amount and that number in your head. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've got some garlic in there, and I've got some shallots or some spring onions and some nice fresh chilli for those that like it hot. And I'm sauteing that in some olive oil. So as the flavours start to, as it starts to cook, you'll start to smell the flavours. Can everyone smell that now already? Starting to? Yep, cool. All right, can anyone remember their first childhood memory or experience about food? Sometimes a smell will take you back to a place and you'll smell that again and go, oh, and instantly have a memory, okay? So interestingly, when we eat, 80% of our eating experience comes from the smell. So if you're not smelling, and you can, what was that famous singer that he got hit in the nose and dated Kylie Minogue? Got hit in the nose. He's dead now, but In Excess, sorry. Yes, Michael Hutchins. So he got hit, and it's a famous thing. So he got hit in the nose and he lost his sense of smell, and it literally drove him back crazy. So when you lose your smell, you don't experience life like everyone else. So when I say cooking, we actually need to get back to cooking, because if you go and get a pre-prepared meal, and I know we're all busy nowadays and that's all fine, but if you go and let others do your cooking for you, you never get this experience. So you're never getting that full effect of actually what it is to actually mindfully eat. So when you start creating your meals from scratch, you start to smell it before you eat it. Then the eating experience is so much more than just getting a food and just having it, okay? So I really wanted to give you guys the sense and the aroma that goes within cooking, because that's really, really important. So I've just, I've got that in there, and it's obviously burning a little bit. So now it's a bad smell. Okay, so I'm just going to add in some spices. So I've got some cumin here, some ground cumin, and I've got some smoked paprika, and I love smoked paprika. I don't know why, I just use it in my cooking all the time. It's the best, isn't it? Oh. And it gives that nice little smoky sort of flavour. So now you can start to smell something a bit different. Do we smell the next layer that's coming through with the cooking? Okay, I'm going to add some capsicum to that. So it's a red capsicum. Now you guys have had the pleasure of me roasting this for your one. So when you roast, there's a little bit more depth of flavour that comes in roasting veggies. So I roasted that before I put it in, but now I'm just cooking it here, which you can totally do, saves a bit of time. So I'm just mixing that around there. Once again, just a couple minutes just to let the flavours release, to soften what we're doing, cooking with the olive oil as well. The other thing I did with mine is I took the coriander and I actually chopped the stems, because often what do we do with the stems of coriander? We sort of use the leaves and then we throw the stems out. I chopped the stems up and put it into my cooking as well. So I'm just going to highlight that here, and I don't need to do that today, it's not necessary, but don't waste anything with your cooking. The stems of coriander hold a really, really beautiful flavour, so it's important that you get them in if you can as well. So next I'm going to add my tomatoes, and I've literally kept the skin on them. They're just fresh tomatoes. Guys, if you didn't have them, you could totally use tin ones as well. So there's about 700 grams of tomatoes there. Once again, tomatoes, if I cook them in olive oil, if I simmer them for about 8 to 10 minutes, I'm releasing all those that beautiful lycopene that makes it, just absolutely amazing for my body now to absorb more nutrients from that. If I had that raw, it'd just have a different effect. It's okay to have things raw as well, but it's okay to also then cook them and do different things in terms of variety. So can we smell that? Yeah, it smells good, right? Okay, so already we're sort of getting our body prepped and primed to be eating these sorts of beautiful, wonderful things. And then these are my black beans. So remember, I soaked them overnight and then I popped them in some fresh water in a saucepan, and I just boiled them, probably for about 30 minutes, thereabouts, 30, 40 minutes, until they were, reasonably okay to sort of chew, obviously. So black beans, that's literally it. Like I said, you could get a tin of black beans, so I'm putting a whole tin in there, or one whole cup. And if I wanted to increase my protein, I'd just put extra. Okay, so there's no rules when, like I said, you're cooking. You've got a base recipe, but if you need extra protein, so if you're a guy and you want to double that protein, go and double it. Okay, there's no rules here. So I'm putting those black beans in there for my protein. I'm really just making sure that all the tomatoes soften down. And the other thing I'm putting in is corn. So I just literally chop that. Don't buy tin corn, everyone. It's so easy to get something fresh. I literally did a Jamie Oliver style. I picked this up from Jamie Oliver. It literally just cuts the ears off the corn. Like, it's just a simple knife and it's just totally fine. And for me, before that time, I was like, oh, corn's so hard to eat. Like, how do I even cut it? I don't even know what to do. But yeah, little tips like that you pick up over the course of time, and it's just super duper easy. So I literally just chopped it off the ear and then just stuck it in. That's how simple it is. So I'm going to let that sit and simmer for about 10 minutes, but of course you guys now need to come up and build your meals. So at the end of that, I'll put my fresh coriander leaves in on top, which is exactly what I've done here. Coriander is the herb that divides people. Anyone hate it? Who hates it? We don't have any haters in the room. Oops. There's always one. It's okay. We don't hold it against you. So come and like I said, cook it, but then freshen it up a little bit with your fresh herbs and extra micronutrients. Think about those sorts of things as well. So guys, what I want you to do is to grab a plate. And if you ever aren't feeling satisfied or full from meals, always eat on a smaller plate, because it's a really big perception issue with our mind, is that if we have a bigger plate and we put the same amount of food on it, you will feel like you're eating less if you're eating off a bigger plate versus a smaller one. So if you're having problems with, satiety, definitely eat off smaller plates. So this will trick you. So come and grab your plate. I want you to come through. You can grab, there's a fork as well just at the end. So your protein, what your protein needs are, thinking about your palm serving of protein. Then you're going to bulk it up with your greens, okay, so your veggies and salad. Then you're going to add your fats, so your thumb-sized version of your fats. And we've gone with the avocado and the lime because it's going to complement everything. So definitely just take a squeeze of lime on top of that, and then have a carbohydrate of choice. So I've got here the beef-free wraps. So I'm just going to pop that in the oven, the microwave for 10 seconds. They're gluten-free, so I just pick those up from the supermarket. If you also then wanted to do something a bit different, I've just added my lupin flakes in here. This was just, I picked up these little ancient grain steam packets. Really easy, didn't even need to cook it. I thought, you guys want some quick, convenient ideas. I've stuck a whole packet of lupin flakes in there, so I've increased the protein content of that. And it's literally just steamed rice. But the other thing is it has, what else did it have in there, Ali? Can you read off there? The other grains it had?
Brown rice, mung bean, cooked millet, quinoa, sorghum, amaranth, chia seeds.
Perfect. When's the last time you had sorghum or millet, right? These grains that we don't think about, or the pulses or legumes we don't think about that we might not get access to, that's why I chose that. That was literally in Aldi. So, these are the sorts of things that, here, you can chuck it here. You can pick up, but go, you know what, that's a different variety. I might try something different today. So, like I said, you don't have to have, you could equally do corn chips, but we're looking at, obviously reducing in terms of health, reducing the fat content of what we're trying to do and getting it from good fats. So here's your carbohydrate with a little extra protein. Here's your other protein with your bean-based protein. Black beans are a great source of protein. Okay, for 1 cup gives you 20 grams. So think about that when you're trying to build your meals and how much grams of protein I'm trying to achieve and what I'm aiming for. Carbohydrate, veggies and salad. Now this is raw zucchini and just steamed broccolini. Anyone tried raw zucchini before? See, some people do, some people don't. And this is like, it's okay to totally eat raw stuff. And before I tried it, I was like, I would never do that either. Zucchini needs to be cooked because that's the only way I've had it before. But you can totally eat it raw. Now I've chopped it up nice and finely so it can blend in with what you're trying to do. But guys, come in, dig in. So grab a plate. But remember your somatotypes, whether you're an ectomorph, endomorph, or mesomorph, and that's going to dictate obviously how much proportion you're going to put in with your macronutrients on your plate. Okay, does that make sense?
Just with the black beans, so that's the protein, obviously it's carb as well.
Yep.
So do you discount that, and when you're adding your carb, or do
if you adjust,
okay, so that's pretty carby, I have less.
Yeah, it depends what other source of source of protein you've got with you. So I've put a bit more extra protein in here, so I'd probably go equal for these two things, knowing that overall you're probably going to get your protein intake anyway. If you were to put mince in there, so if you did like a turkey mince or a beef mince, then obviously your protein content would go up, so you'd need a little bit less of it. But because I've only got that as your protein source, I'd probably just look at that as just protein. Yeah, does that make sense? The other thing as well, guys, you're getting a little bit of protein in your grains anyway. So particularly with this, it's got quinoa in it, which is a higher protein grain. So you don't just look at your legumes as being the sole, or your meats as being the sole source of protein. You're still getting a little bit more across the board, whatever you choose. So please, guys, come up, grab a plate, start down the line.
Yogurt on top instead of like a sour cream
Yes,
thing.
perfect. Thank you, Ali.
What would you substitute for coriander? So someone can have it, I eat it, but what would you put in there? Is that also
Maybe
On this side. So
parsley. Parsley. Yeah, sorry. That's a good idea. I'm good. I need that. So I'm adding some salt and pepper. So a lot of times, guys, seasoning, don't be afraid of seasoning. A lot of us are scared about salt, but particularly if you're a heavy sweater, if you're exercising a lot and you're not eating a lot of packaged foods, you're not getting a lot of sodium in your diet anyway. So don't be afraid of these sorts of things. Obviously, a rock salt or a sea salt has a little bit more extra minerals than a table salt. Don't be shy, plenty of food. Yes, and use the Chobani yogurt as your sour cream. So you can dollop that on there, natural yogurt. Always come back for seconds.
Coles as well, or just Woolies? I know they're definitely.
Some
It would be really funny that they don't have
Yeah.
the same things.
You're right. I always say Woolies always has this. Coles doesn't have the film yolk, but sometimes Coles will have the quark
I
yogurt
always
and
go
not
to
that.
Coles and I've
Yeah,
never seen
actually,
either of them.
I know.
At what cost well, they definitely do have that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
They're definitely Woolies.
Woolies is definitely this.
Woolies from Cat.
Yeah, and it's not in your milk, so it's with the other, like your Cooks, like the other cultured milks. It's not in the normal spot where you think it to be.
These would be good for, say, a 13-year-old girl who can't go milk.
Perfect. Perfect. And like sometimes even full fat, but these are a little bit low fat anyway. But that's okay. Calcium.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that with bananas.
Yep.
Yeah.
So bulk it up. Yep. Put some like stewed fruit on there. Make it appealing as well.
Absolutely.
What do we think, guys? All good. Flavors, so what we're thinking about is, getting those macronutrients, but also how do we combine something that tastes good, has all my nutrition needs when I'm thinking about recovery and fuel and, good gut health and that sort of thing. And that's how you do it. It's really easy, super easy. And there's no rules to what we did. I gave you a few different options, but remember all the time how we're going to get our protein, where's our carbohydrate coming from, do we need a little bit extra carbohydrate if we're a bigger person, if we're doing a harder session, so think about those sorts of things. Your protein needs will probably pretty much stay the same over the course of, what you're trying to achieve, but your carbohydrates are the things that really actually then stack up and are used quite heavily when we're looking at increasing your energy expenditure. Your carbohydrates have to go with that to fuel your performance, if that's something that you guys are interested in, performance. So not just in the gym, but also in life in general. Good. I'm loving that. So there's a couple of other things that we have done, because I did get the question when I did the live Facebook chat about snacks. So how do we do snacks? So remembering if we get that 3 meal in a day, so the breakfast, your lunch and your dinners, and then the 4th meal we want to deconstruct a little bit and have as snacks throughout the day, which is maybe a little bit easier for our lifestyle. And so I've done a couple of different things. So the first thing I'll do here, and I'm not going to take you guys through this, I just thought I really want you guys to try this because I made this dip the other day. It was a beetroot dip and it was a winner. So I definitely want you guys to try it. And I want to tell you why I created something like this. So does everyone know that this is exactly what beetroot looks like in the shop?
Oh, I thought it was sliced.
Doesn't come in a tin. I know.
Tin tree.
If it, I've never heard that one again. It's just such a tragedy that everyone's first experience of beetroot is from a tin, and for me, like a lot of people can grow up not even knowing, even as adults, what the hell this actually is in the supermarket. So I always use fresh beetroot. I will never ever go to a tin. So it just has such a different flavour and such a different texture, and you can do so much with it. So this is beetroot. So all I did was grab the beetroot, I chopped off the ends, and I wrapped it in some alfoil, put a little bit of olive oil spray in there, of course, because why do we love olive oil? For every reason ever. Yes. All those wonderful things. And so I wrapped it in alfoil and I put it in the oven. I also did the same with a red onion. So I just peeled the red onion. I actually put a little bit of balsamic vinegar because it just works wonders when it caramelizes. So a little bit of balsamic vinegar, a little bit of olive oil spray, wrapped it up in alfoil, popped in the oven next to my beetroot and just roasted it for about an hour. And then I got some natural cashews. And I am fortunate to have a Thermomix, but if you don't have that, that's okay. If you've got just a pretty good blender, you can keep it pretty chunky as well. I blended it quite fine, but I put about a cup of raw natural cashews in there, blitzed it up, and then I added a small container of marinated Persian feta. I didn't put the oil in there though, so just the cheese. So the Persian feta cheese is about 100 grams. And then I blitzed it all together and I have this delicious beetroot dip. Now, the reason why I chose beetroot is number one, because not a lot of people know what to do with it, but number two, it has this amazing content of nitrate. Do we know what nitrate is good for as athletes? Yes, there's an element of that. It's not an amino acid, but it is definitely good for performance. And I'll tell you guys why, because I don't think anyone's going to have any other guesses, are we? No? Okay. Besides it being a beautiful colour, I just love fruit and veg with colour. So the depth of colour is really important. So when I say talk about variety, I often get you guys to eat across the board, but also, no worries, Jer, also really look for things with colour in them, because when you have different colours, you get different access to micronutrients as well. So it's really mindful to do that. So not a lot of the time we get something that is beautiful in colour. So nitric oxide, so what happens when we have beetroots and when we eat a lot of green leafy veggies in our diet as well is that we have a higher concentration of nitrate. So nitrate's now been shown within a sports performance perspective to increase your perception of, relieve your perception of exertion. So when we're looking at endurance sports, how it acts is that it increases your oxygen, the ability for your body to use oxygen more readily. And so it has some really cool benefits also in heart health and reducing blood pressure. So how cool is this? Remember I talked about food as medicine? So nitric oxide is what it's broken down into in an active form in your body. And so when we choose things that have lots of nitrate containing vegetables, in our diet, we're getting this natural element of having this really nice amount of nitrate throughout what we're eating within our foods, which then turns into lowering our blood pressure, increasing our oxygen ability, and also then in terms of performance, makes us think that we're actually not training as hard as what we are. How cool is that? Yeah, and so it increases your ability to then perform and go for longer. So it has been used quite heavily in endurance sports. They've actually done it, they thought it was so wonderful that they concentrated it and they put it in what's called a beat it shot. It is a literal shot canister of beetroot juice and it's got about 400 milligrams of nitric oxide in it, and that's what people load with if they're going into big major endurance events. Pretty cool, all right?
If we were to juice a beetroot on our own, will we get most of that nitrate in the juice?
It's really concentrated, so they would, I think they reduce it as well. Do you know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
concentrated. You'd have to have more of that beetroot
Yeah.
juice. Yeah, but you would get it in the juice.
Yeah.
In the liquid.
Yeah, totally. You'd probably have to have,
A litre.
yeah, you might have to, that's probably about right. You might have to drink a litre, whereas that's the benefit of having it in that sort of shot amount. And you do pee red, yes.
Not dying.
You're not dying, it's okay. So please guys, I've got some veggie sticks here and obviously we've got some crackers. Now I have a bit of a surprise dip over here. I would like you to try it before I say anything more about it. It's amazing for you.
Sorry, just to go back on the dip.
Oh, yeah,
Almost
sorry.
carb free. Are you going to say it's pretty
Possibly,
low in carbs?
yeah, because it's a little bit higher in fat. It's got a bit more, the cashews and the feta, and then just literally the beetroot and the onion. Yes, definitely. So lower carbohydrate. So you remember how we deconstructed that meal? Thank you for that. Deconstructed the meal. We've got, obviously the veggies component. We've got the fats component in there as well now. So that's maybe a fat and a veggie, and then you might be wanting to get another protein dip, which is what this one is going to be over here. And then of course your carbohydrate with the seedy crackers that I'm choosing as well. So can you see here that I've taken that whole meal and I've just deconstructed it in a snack way that you guys can think about maybe as your day goes on, maybe to having these sorts of things around and accessible for you to snack on during the in-between meals as well. This has an amazing, wonderful anti-inflammatory property. I'm not going to tell you what I've put in there. You may guess, but I'd like you to try it first and then I'll talk about why I put it in there. So please guys come up and try this. And definitely try that.
Is there a giveaway?
And if you want to, there's no rules here, so you can put a dollop of yogurt on there, maybe take some avocado slices and pop that on there as well. Come on up. There's some napkins here as well, or if you've got your plate still, load your plates up. So seriously, come and just grab them.
Yeah, maybe get a plate if you're going to have one of those big crackers, the grainy ones, because they break easily. Yeah, crumbly, that's the word.
And the other thing I've chosen a carbohydrate source that has, you can actually visibly see the whole grain in there. So when we talk about whole grains, that's literally what it is. There's oats, there's seeds in them. So these crackers are very unprocessed. So when we're choosing these sorts of things, look for that when you're looking at your products. I love you. Blind faith. It is good for you. All I can say is that it will help you recover exceptionally well. We use it a lot in elite sports, particularly with our rugby players.
Way better.
Oh, good.
Right.
Say that louder.
It was way better than what I thought.
Excellent.
I don't really tuna. I don't eat
For a
tuna.
seafood dip.
We did say that, yes. You've got a bit of red in the toilet. It's okay. That means you've got plenty of nitric oxide.
It's not vegetarian. It's the fish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. No, it's a food preference. Yes, we can tell you. We can disclose those facts.
Are they veggies here?
Yes,
They'd know
I
pretty
believe.
quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about the bones and the calcium. Can you talk about that? Yeah. I'll let them sit down. Oh, you'll try it. Do you like it? Sweet. It's good, hey. I thought about putting yogurt in there. I was like, no, I really like the Persian feta. I just think it's just... There's no what?
No chorizo.
I knew! He puts his dish up and he's like, it's all good. And then he goes, and then there's chorizo. I was like,
In saying that though, very small.
perfect. Good. And it's just for
Everything in
flavour.
moderation.
It's so fine.
Each one of those meals would be like maybe like a sixth of like a one.
It's okay.
I did think about
Such
it.
good
I kept
justification.
It's still not amazing. Like it could be better,
But like I love the flavour of chorizo. I just don't know if I 100% like the content of it
no.
as a processed food.
My partner really wanted that one, and I was like, 1 week's not gonna happen.
No. You are on the challenge though, remember, Mass?
Yes,
Okay.
but hard
It's
part
all
is
good.
It's both of both. Yeah, food prep. So
Yeah. Well, you have to, and that's a big part of actually being compliant in what you're doing is to make sure that the people around you actually support what you're doing. So you have to.
it's in my head. I was like, I'll do it this week, next week.
Yeah, perfect. You're good. What do we think, guys? Do we try the there's a prize for who guesses what's in the dip.
Sardines.
That is one ingredient. You're going to need to get all of them to win.
Salmon.
Yep.
Parsley.
Yep.
Three.
Yep. Two more. Protein, parsley.
Protein.
It's a bit of a mishmash. And lemon. Yep.
Saying words that they make me feel sick.
I know. This is why I didn't say it to start with. Yep. Because that's preconception. Yeah. I'll wait till you guys try it.
Your reveal.
Yeah, no. It's not just that. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. Just like the small grain one. Yep. It's good, hey. Yeah, there was. I roasted a garlic with the onion. Yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I did that time. Yeah, I'm cold.
Yeah.
It's starting to get cold now.
You're idle.
Ugh, yes, that's right. I'm not talking as much.
I was going to say you need a
I have just look at this. Although hopefully it won't get muffled.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right. Now, if I told you there was an amazing, amazing food that was really, really cheap that you could eat and it would guarantee that you would feel less sore, it would make your brain function better, it would help at decreasing any other inflammatory marker within your system, and we know that inflammation is the cause of most chronic diseases. It helps lower cholesterol. Anything else I'm missing? It's delicious. Would you eat it? You know, if you just knew those facts about something, you'd make a decision and go, this sounds like a pretty good superfood, right? And if I told you I put sardines in that dip, automatically we'd go, not touching that. Okay, so think about your perception of food. Sometimes we have these associations, and often because we've had a negative or a bad experience with them, or our smell has gotten the better of us, because as I said, if we smell something before we have it, we make a judgment call straight away. That's kind of a survival mechanism, so it's probably an important factor, so it's not a bad thing. But in saying that, when we have these preconceived ideas about what food is and whether we're going to eat it or not, I often say to people, over time, your taste buds do change. If you prepare something in another way that you might not even thought of, you might actually start to enjoy it. And so sardines are probably one of the most amazing foods we could possibly eat as athletes as well, but just in general, for our general health. They are super duper cheap. A lot cheaper than salmon, a lot cheaper than tuna. And what you're getting from an omega-3 content is way more than what you'd ever find in the other fish alone. And so these little guys just pack so much more calcium as well. They pack so much more bang for your buck when you're thinking about a food that's going to do all these wonderful things that we can get for pretty cheap. And yet we'd go spend fortune on omega-3 pills and tablets, wouldn't we? But remember what I said about having the whole food. There's something that happens when we eat the whole food, and the synergy and the use of those different nutrients that we need, and how our body then absorbs that as well. So what I've put in there, now I had a couple other guesses. So there was sardines, but there was also red wild salmon with the bones. So when you're having edible bones, there's extra calcium in there. There was smoked tuna, and there was a tuna with chili as well. And there was a stack of parsley, a spring onion, lemon rind, and some lemon juice. So that's exactly what you're having. Okay, when I think about that as a high protein source and a great source of fats as well, when we start to prepare things a little bit differently, we can start to enjoy them a little bit more. Anything else you want to add about salmon?
If you're going to get... I was in the supermarket the other day, and this lady was buying sardines for her dog, and I also buy sardines for my dog. And I said, if you're going to buy them, just make sure you look at the... this one actually has it written out, but usually it's DHA and EPA. They're these long acid names, docosahexaenoic acid and icosapentaenoic acid. And essentially, they're what contain your omega-3s, your essential fatty acids. So if you're looking in the supermarket, I know you don't all stand there and go, which one has the most EPA and DHA? But some of them are quite low. So if you can pick up a couple and just go which one has higher numbers in milligrams, you're onto a winner. Just grab a couple and look. If you go for the home brand ones for this sort of thing, you'll find that you don't have nearly as many of the good fats in it. So sometimes it can pay, not just with sardines, but with your salmon as well, to look, with your fish, to actually look at this and maybe get the more dear one, because I think in the long run they're cheaper anyway than getting the fresh stuff if you're going to get tinned.
Yeah.
Tinned, like salmon and everything was from a tin.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you didn't buy the salmon.
It was all tinned. It was all tinned. So it's often cheaper as well to get the wild caught salmon. You're probably not going to get that. A lot of the salmon that we can access now fresh is farmed, and then it comes down to what they're feeding the fish as to how much omega-3 content, as Ali said, is going to go into it. So you're better off paying a little bit higher premium price for fish when we're talking about fish and oily fish in general, to get that extra nutrient content. I discussed this with eggs as well. The last time, I know we didn't do eggs here, but once again, a great source of protein, and it does come down to the free range, obviously, and what they're fed is going to have a higher omega-3 content. So paying a little bit extra for things like eggs, or even just getting your chooks that someone has maybe in their yard, or your farm fresh stuff is a lot better than possibly what you might be getting in a cheaper sense as well. Yeah, so what do we think, guys? Are we happy? Are we full? Are we educated? Are we empowered now to go and cook these sorts of things? It's super easy. It didn't take me long at all to do this sort of stuff, but it had flavour and it had a lot of thought behind why it is that we are wanting to eat these sorts of things. So to finish with, we have a couple of giveaways. We would like to extend our thanks obviously to Cobham Estate, Rokeby Farms and also Loop & Co, who sponsor a lot of what we do because they're just great products and they're awesome. So we have a couple of questions for a few lucky winners. So the first one I'm going to give away is a signature. It was a gold award, a premier extra virgin olive oil, obviously from Cobham Estate. Ali has a question. Whoever can answer this one.
Okay, per
Leave that.
200 grams of lupin flakes, how much protein would you get? Per 200.
First hand up. I don't know who you're going to pick. Okay.
Oh, who had their hand up first? Man?
Yeah, I know.
Let's go. We'll go you. 80. Perfect.
Yes.
Sorry, I should have been watching.
Winner. Can we get some photos with you and the product after as well? Thank you. All right, so for a bag of lupin, we've got plenty of lupin to hand out. What was our second question?
If you don't want to have dairy, where else can you get calcium from? Yeah. Yeah, you.
So like fortified soy milks and things or dark leafy greens. Calcium.
Yeah. Anything else we've just eaten?
Oh, the seeds. The seeds.
Sunflower seeds and something in there.
It's definitely right.
The fish, the bones.
Yeah, the
on
fish
meat.
bones. Perfect. So that was 2 tiered.
Okay. Who? One for you. Who was the other one? Any? No, Michelle. Perfect.
Yeah. What's different about milk compared to film yolk, the stuff we had on the rhubarb compote? Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
How do we frame that one? Oh, okay. What? Adding. Let's say adding avocado or olive oil to your recovery meal. What's the benefit of doing that? Yeah. Yes. These are too easy. We need to do some curveballs.
Yeah, good job. 2 more. What can do?
Why is rice malt syrup better than maple syrup? Why? Why is it not?
I think because it doesn't taste really sweet, you end up adding more, so you actually end up having more sugar and it's fine.
I'm happy with that.
Cool. Yeah, it was a trick question. Good catch.
Sorry, that was my bad throw. One more for the winner. I was going to do something with Jenny from garlic. Something about rhubarb. Something about beetroot. Oh, yeah, we could do.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's while it's fresh on everyone's mind. What's the component in beetroot that's beneficial for sports performance and both? What's its mechanism? Yep, and what's the mechanism?
Phone a friend. You can't phone a friend.
You can have half a prize.
Helps produce more oxygen, or use more oxygen.
Yeah. Teamwork. Makes the dream work.
Well done, guys. Awesome work today. I just wanted to say thanks to Ali. Thank you, my amazing assistant. But also thanks to you guys. So you're at halfway mark now. What are you going to do with your meals? How can you be more inventive? I want to see more pictures up on the Facebook group. I want to see your ideas. I want to see that support. We have 4 weeks. We're 4 weeks in. We're now kind of idle stage. We're like, okay, well, what do we do? Are we kicking it or what? Have a think about your reflection to date. What have you done really well and really consistently that you can keep up? What are you going to do next week and over the next few weeks after that that's going to make you skyrocket, make you be the best version of you that you can possibly be? When we think about the sessions that we're doing, could we put a bit more in? Could we do some extra stuff? Can we nourish ourselves a little bit better? What are we going to focus on? 1 or 2 things as simple 6 habits. What aren't you nailing just yet? And really focus on that for the next 4 weeks. So this is your time to be able to see how much you can push yourself and how much more you can grow. Because once you reach that level, then we start going, oh, maybe we can get another higher level. Or where do we want to go from there? And I can guarantee you, if you do not have your health, you don't have anything, okay? You, as you are right now, you need to be physically fit and strong to have the energy that's going to transcend across every other aspect of your life. So this is of prime importance. You nail this, I can guarantee other stuff will start to happen within your life as well that you could not have possibly seen before you had that mindset. So use all the skills that we've taught you so far. Keep going. We've got some really cool other seminars coming up with Cal and his technique seminars, and Brent as well. And pop your questions on the forum. Like if you've got nutrition related questions, I'm here. I'm going to answer those for you guys. We might do another live Facebook question and answer. But otherwise, is anyone have any burning questions? Anything that we haven't gone through?
Sorry, I'm going to jump in the back end of that.
Yeah.
That's a good segue. We're just going to do for the next 4 weeks, if you are doing 3 training sessions, say small group PT, we can do an upgrade to the 4 a week if you wish, for just an extra $15, okay? Cool, so if you're on the 3, you can upgrade to the 4. I know that Brent and I, we get after it, we do 5, because of our nutrition, post-training.
And their chef.
And yes,
Jason's got this magic fridge where you open it.
It's just there, like it just appears.
Don't forget the wows as well.
Yes.
Do the wows with the team, good environment.
Yeah.
Creates a bit of banter.
So if you want to step it up a notch, just let us know. And but yeah, make sure your nutrition's on point so your recovery is good and you sleep and all that sort of jazz that you've learned over the last 4 weeks. So cool.
Awesome. Thanks, team. Have a great weekend.
Any burning questions? Sorry.
Oh, any burning questions? Yes.
The fish dip, how long, once open, like sitting like that, if you were to just refrigerate it, is it going to last in the fridge?
Oh, I'd say 3 days. I've got a 3-day rule with everything. As long as you most things, as long as you keep it closed in a container in the fridge, I think it's fine. Yeah, it was sitting in a tin for longer.
Yeah.
But there's heaps of good, if you Google that, there's heaps of good guides on how long different things will keep and how to store things better. Particularly for stuff like this, you know, coriander should be stored in a Ziploc with a damp tissue around the roots. So different things require different storage. Yeah. So yeah, Google your friend for that. But yeah, we say 3 days.
I do 3 days
of food safety.
Yeah.
When we learn food safety in uni, it's just like, oh god, if we eat anything after 3 days, it's got to kill us.
Yeah.
It definitely does it. But yeah, that's just a standard.
And then and with that the temperature rule. So between 5 and 70. So if it's under 5 degrees or over 70, it will probably kill any sort of foodborne-ish bacteria unless you can visibly see it. So if you keep it in a fridge, obviously 4 degrees, or if you heat it, obviously before you eat it, up to 70, then you should be okay.
The only other thing I'll add, because I could talk all day about nutrition, is if you're going to store fresh fruit and veg for a while and you don't know whether you can consume it, you've got those offcuts at the end of the week that you just haven't used because you haven't sort of planned out your week, think about how you can blitz it and freeze it or store it in a different way so you lock those nutrients in, because the longer it stays fresh and not eaten, the less nutrients are going to be in it over time.
Yeah, great point.
What about things like celery? You know, it goes like limp, and then you put it in water, and it like gets crunch back again.
Flowers.
Is that still the same? Is that like it's not going to lose any nutrients from that?
The nutrients still degrade over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, just from the length
So
of it.
It's still losing.
It tastes better. It's a good tip to get the crunch back.
That's actually a really nice point about hydration as well. Like, you know, like if you take something that's really kind of like limp and you're looking at the cell itself, we need water with everything that we do. As you know, there's 70% of our water is contained within our cells and 30% is in that extracellular space. So we are comprised of a lot of water. So it's important, particularly when you're training, to be making sure you're on point with your hydration and having that water always on board with your meals as well for maximal absorption. So think about yourself as that limp sort of celery, and then filling up and being this strong, you know, anyway. You guys will remember that. So drink your water. But you know, yes, anytime you put something in a story, you guys will remember that, yeah? But yeah, any other cool, quirky things that we want to know about with food while you got us here? What other things can we tell them? We've got some cool gut stories. So many things. There's like fecal transplants happening at the moment. Do we know that? Where they're taking really healthy people's poo and implanting them into other people's bowels. So cool, because yeah, gut health is the thing. Very cool. But if you eat your prebiotics and your probiotics, you won't need to have this happen to you. It can what?
Freeze our food.
Replant.
Lock in those nutrients.
It will. It will. It is. How it works? Yeah, so what they're looking at is you can actually get your stool sample analysed for the amount of bacteria that there is in there. Sometimes they're now actually looking at different strains of bacteria being helpful for adding or giving to people for certain ailments. So we will come to a point in technology that we can figure out, okay, if you're, say, you've got IBS or you've got Crohn's or you know, even mental health from that perspective, I think as well, you need this strain of probiotics, and here they'll actually like dish up your probiotics in a strain-related dose, which is really, really cool depending on what you're suffering from. So people that are the healthiest people, they often say, well, what's healthy about you? You've got more variety of gut microbes in your gut, and then obviously when you're looking at your stool sample, we can see and analyse that. So then that's where the healthiest type of people with the best gut health, the best microbes, the best variety of them, the best amount maybe, are healthier people. And then if we implant that, because it contains all those good microbes, into somebody else that isn't as healthy, it can colonise their bowel.
But how do they physically implant it into somebody else's bowel? Is it like an enema, or is it like a...
That's a really good question. I would say like an endoscopy like thing. I think like maybe like an endoscopy possibly. Like you'd have to probably go under.
Yeah, you just eat it. Just eat it.
Yeah. Straight in.
Freeze-dried flakes.
Woo. That's a really, yeah. And it can't be done here. I think you've got to, maybe, it's like some European country that will do it, but we can't get it. So you can? Maybe the PA's doing it. There you go.
Maybe they just did it for a seminar.
That's cool. Yeah. That's a wrap.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks. That's a 2 mile wrap.